And this one is sort of, I actually find it fascinating for me, but sort of like the new era of the browser wars. So the browser has been one of these things that, Microsoft made some news several years now with Edge, and there's been some talk around the edges of browsers, but we haven't had any real significant innovation in browsers for a while. I mean, I use Arc, which was made by a company called the Browser Company. That was supposed to be this big thing, and they've just introduced what they're calling Dia, which is their new AI-powered browser. And there's been but in terms of major players, we just haven't had anything really big hitting the market. And that all changed this week with both OpenAI and Perplexity announcing what they're calling AI web browsers, although exactly what that means is still a little bit in question. So it's kind of this interesting period. And by the way, I am a big fan of Arc and the browser company, and there's a DI. I have been playing with that one a little bit, and frankly, struggling, even being an AI power user in many ways, struggling with sort of that interaction point. So I'm curious what you take of these two announcements, and add any other context you'd like. But do you think is this real? I mean, I find it very curious myself that OpenAI decided, of all the places they could go, that this was one of the ones that they felt they wanted to go down the road with.
Yeah, I found this to be fascinating because it's no secret that browser world is changing really quickly. Google is being threatened to have to get rid of Chrome or to push it out into its own standalone company as part of the whole EU monopoly issues that are going on. And OpenAI and Perplexity both see this as an opportunity to get in and take that business. So they're going to open up these new browsers and hope that their services are going to drive web traffic. And on a separate note, one of the things I find interesting is that ironically, Perplexity is using Google Chromium to build their browser. So Google may have created the seeds for their own demise in the browser space. And this isn't a unique take because back, if you remember Zoho, the app company, they have their own browser as well, Ula, which they created for privacy. They also built it on Google Chromium. So it looks like one way or the other, the open source Chromium may be driving the future of the web, but just not in ways that Google had intended.
Well, because of course, building the actual nuts and bolts of a browser is not very exciting, and that's not where the innovation comes from. So it makes sense to sort of bake it on. And for that matter, I'm just talking about Arc. Arc is also built on Chromium. I mean, it is almost the de facto. If you are not Microsoft, it is a de facto. So it is actually going to be really interesting because we have not seen. So unlike Perplexity, which has put this forward, OpenAI right now is just sort of talking about it. So we don't actually know, but it would not surprise me to see OpenAI is also built on Chromium. So, I don't know that the big question is it going to truly be innovative? But, again, I think the Arc browser that I'm using was a very innovative approach, and it was built on Chromium because Chromium is like the core engine, right? It's the core
Yeah.
part of it. And so what's interesting about all of these, and certainly what I think both OpenAI and the Perplexity are talking about is this idea of effectively deploying, lack of a better term, and I'm using this very loosely, but a native browser agent within that browser, right? That's the concept.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I see this, interestingly enough, I sort of seen this similar to the approach of why Zoho, you mentioned them, why they went down this road, is that the browser is the entry point to almost everything. We use browsers for a gazillion different ways of interaction. And even when we're using a quote unquote app, in many cases, that app is a wrapper around a browser, right? Everything is effectively browser based now. And one of the challenges that the AI companies have had from an AI perspective, from an agentic perspective, is the variability that comes from not understanding how that browser is going to interact. And if they're trying to use an open browser based AI agent, they have to maneuver through that. So I can see where it makes some sense, right? It's like, well, if I can control my environment, then it makes it a whole lot easier if I'm effectively screen scraping, if I'm trying to interact with the screen, which is what these browser-based agents are doing, then it makes a lot of sense. If I can control that environment, then I'm gonna have a much better chance of having it work. So on the one hand, that doesn't surprise me. On the other hand, it opens up a whole nother set of things that they have to maintain. And
Mhm.
is that going to be worth it in the long run? Or are we going to find other approaches to this? Because I've been pretty bearish on the entire idea of browser-based agents anyway. So, it's going to be really interesting to see if this plays out.
Yeah, it all these $100 billion valuations need to start panning out in terms of actual revenue. So I guess this is the direction they all have to go in. I am kind of sticker shocked by the fact that the Perplexity browser Comet is currently only available to their premium users who are paying $200 a month. So that those are the table stakes
You got to
for
get you got to get something for your 200 bucks a month.
right.
And I guess part of what you get is you get to point people to people using this really cool browser with this really cool website. I will say their landing page for the browser is pretty slick.
Mhm.
Comment.perplexity.ai. It's like this really cool little interface. So it's I'll give them kudos for that.
Yep.
But yeah, so we'll see. We will definitely see. It's I think the browser wars are we'll see if they're actually wars or if people just decide that it's not actually needed and necessary. But